Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher alongside Wyatt Schultz, The Predicament, and Coach Dick Briggs, bringing you kind of a breakdown of the 2020 State Wrestling Tournament, kind of the season gem of the prep wrestling year. And it didn't fail to be a special time. And you wanted to kick it off with You Make a Call, kind of a special edition.
Yeah, we're having some fun with this. So we didn't have time last week, so revised it this week. So
I was actually reminded that I got the last two right. So
yes, I can't remember who mentioned that to me as well.
Yes, somebody told me that. Hey, you got the last two right.
Go easy on KJ on that.
Hey, I started out hot.
You did.
That's right. You guys are about even, I think, or I don't know. KJ still may have you.
KJ's still ahead.
Okay. So anyway, here's the official or the You Make the Call. At an official weigh-in, a wrestler steps on the scale in his underwear and socks to weigh in and sees that he's 1/10 of a pound overweight. He may A, step off, remove his socks, then step back on. B, go to the restroom accompanied by a weigh-in administrator and then reweigh. C, only step off the scale and then step back on. D, both A and B. E, he may go to the sauna wearing a plastic suit while spitting in a cup. So I assume you're saying it's not E. So I can read it.
But E's been done by a number of people. I know for sure. Yeah. When people weren't looking.
You mean we can't do that anymore?
We can't do that anymore.
I'm going to throw this in there really quick. There was one time when I was a freshman at a duel, and I was running in the opposing team's wrestling room during a duel, and I opened up a cabinet that had sauna suits stacked up in there. Won't say what program it was and what city we were in, but I remember one of the assistant coaches coming in and going, hey, get here. So, anyway, I am going to go with D.
D, both A and B?
Both A and B.
Step off, remove his socks, and then step back on. That's A. And B, go to the restroom accompanied by a administrator and then reweigh.
Just to make it interesting, I'll say C. Step off the scale, and then you can only step right back on.
Okay.
Or another scale. But on a dual meet, you probably wouldn't have another scale.
Okay. And the correct answer is C. You can only step off the scale and then step back on.
3.
It used to be that you could remove your socks. It used to, or whatever you had on. It used to be that you could go to the restroom accompanied by, but not anymore. You can only step on and then step off and then step back on. If you miss it, then you're off. Now, if there's multiple scales, you can check
a different
scales, but that's it.
What if you were to step off, decide to relieve yourself right there, and then jump right back on? Is that a gray area? Not that I'm condoning any wrestlers doing that. I'm not suggesting anybody try that or take that route.
I'm going to have to go with gray area on that one. It's not addressed in the book.
All right.
Oh, boy.
I'm just trying to find a way trying to avoid taking the L again. Wyatt, 3 in a row. That a kid. Boy.
There we go.
I guess I kind of
awesome.
relate that to tournaments where you're only allowed to go from, like the independence tournaments, you got your 10 scales or whatever they got out there, and you can only go from one scale to another. You can't leave.
There's even a rule with the height of your socks. They have to be below the ankle or the ankle.
Really?
You can't have full length socks.
When
or
you
regular
weigh in?
socks. Yeah.
Oh, that I didn't
Now, it's
know.
been a while since I've weighed in for anything other than my annual physical and what's wrong with me appointment. But how many people weigh in with socks?
Well, some I think because conditions where they don't want to get their. I'm guessing
sure.
like a foot foot disease or whatever. Now,
Okay.
some of them, I think the height of the socks has to do with skin infections, so you have to be able to see.
Oh.
And you can't just slide them down either. So I mean,
Okay.
there is rhyme to the
So
reason.
you might be
but
hiding a little
reason to the
something.
rhyme.
Yeah.
Well, hiding a little funk.
Good
All
point.
right. All right. Well, the 2020 state championships are in the books.
It's over.
State duels. We had some doozies. Some expected performances. Maybe a couple surprises, but you know, when it was all said and done, Southeast Polk and West Delaware won again in the duels, 3A and 2A, and then Lisbon with the exciting finish in 1A, eclipsed Don Bosco for the 1A dual title.
Right, and in terms of the upsets, it's interesting to note that no fourth seed made it through the first round in either of the three classes. I guess probably the other big upset, or at least based on seeds, would be Independence finishing fourth rather than their second seed. So but that 2A was kind of it was real close to me. You know,
From 2 on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, from 2 on.
And Assumption being the one that knocked off Osage in the opening round, 5-4, and then beat Independence as well for third place. And that's a team we've said multiple times.
Exactly.
Has been more and more
Improving all year
yeah.
long.
You know, and I
Dangerous.
thought I looked, and I think they've wrestled their full on it, but I'm not 100% sure that once you get into that third and fourth place match, your mind goes to the
Shifting,
next day,
yeah.
shifts to the next day, and so they may have held some out too. So I don't know on that. I don't remember.
But at the same time, the Walmack had 3 of the top 4 teams in
Outstanding.
in 2A.
Yep.
Performance.
And Williamsburg. You know,
Yeah.
I probably belabored the fact, but I just thought it was so interesting in what makes the duels is what Williamsburg did. And they brought two guys down to the state tournament. Now you can look at the road to state for them. It was very tough, especially with West Delaware qualifying 12 and the teams that they had to wrestle at sectionals and districts. But 2 state qualifiers, but as a team, they're state runners up.
Yeah.
That right there encompasses what the duels are all about, and just a great effort by them, being Sergeant Bluff Luton in the opener, and then avenging a loss to Independence in the semifinals.
Right. And we kind of addressed that in the last episode that we thought Williamsburg might be going down with a purpose. You know, having only qualified 2 for the individual, the other 12 plus those 2. I mean that they're done on Wednesday, so they don't have nothing to save it for. They're going to go out and give it their all. So and that's I'm sure that was a little part of it. Plus the fact that Coach Eckenrod had them up. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but in 2A, the story all year has been what West Delaware has done. Coming into the duels, they'd beaten 2A teams by like a average of 57 points, and they didn't slow down there. Winning, I think it's their 3rd dual title overall and 2nd in the last 2 years.
right, and it was not even it was a runaway.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
nothing in the finals, 53-9.
Yeah, and
So-
actually their closest duel was with Assumption.
Yeah.
You know, we had mentioned how much they had seemed like they had improved all year long.
So no surprise there. Congratulations to the Hawks on that. The big story though of the entire duels has to be the Don Bosco Lisbon final. That was I think my lead. It was the duel everybody expected, or the duel everybody wanted to see, and it was the thriller that everybody expected. Going down to the final duel or final match at 152, Marshall Houck getting a pin, over Cale Frost to give Lisbon the 36-30 victory, and I think their first dual title since 2017.
Right. Yeah. I'll address this briefly because it's out there. So let's talk about it for a minute.
I didn't want to be the one to jump on the grenade.
But I'm going to bring it up.
Okay.
That there's discussion with the headgear, whether it was a headgear pull or not, and some are saying get rid of headgear and all of that. And my comment is or make it optional, not get rid of it, but make it optional. Well, if it's optional, it's still going to be a rule, whether it was a headgear pull or not. From what I've seen, it's really hard to call. I mean, that could be, it could not be. I mean, so I bet if you had 10 different officials, you're going to have different. It's going to be a split, or maybe more that would not call it, in my opinion. But so it wasn't like a clear cut fingers wrap pulling it down. There was, it was on there, but you're allowed to use that to to inch it forward or something like that. But with your hand. So that being said, I don't know if it would have changed the results. It would have certainly gave Don Bosco an opportunity to change the results, but anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Kind of a hot topic.
Yeah, and I've been contacted by readers as well about the terminology that I used when it comes to reporting it, and I explained to Dick and Wyatt before we came on camera. I'm reporting on the duel. I'm not writing a commentary. I'm not writing a column, an opinion column. I only report what officially takes place. There was no call for the pulled headgear. I described it. You can connect any kind of dots that you want. I described it the way it happened, where he, how grabbed the head, a frost, and then eventually cinched up a cradle after that. It's not my place to interject whether I thought it was a pulled headgear or whatever. Same thing with the Taylor-Thompson match. It's not my place to determine whether or not they were cautions, what the official should have done instead of making the call. I report what officially happened. So that's why there's no reference in the story to a pulled headgear, because was it called, there's nothing to really report about it. As far as unless I'm doing a commentary or a takeaway of that stuff, and that wasn't the point. But regardless, it was a heck of a duel between the two. Don Bosco came out and really jumped to a big advantage. I think it was like 21-0. At that point, did you think,
that Lisbon would come back?
Yeah.
You don't, but at the same time with the weight draw where they started, you hit, I guess basically Lisbon's weaker part of the lineup.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's Don
pretty good
Bosco's strength, but it just happened to be the way they
But
do.
a pretty good 3-match stretch with the 10
Right.
Olds and Thomas Even to get out to a
Right.
good start. The big one was Fisher Ort trailing in that match, and then getting kind of a throw. I can't remember if it was a neck wrench or what it was that he was able to do to get a pin at 195. That was a big swing that you thought, oh, that might end up being the difference there. But, Lisbon did bounce back. Cole Clark got things started. Brant Baltus won a thriller and ultimate tiebreaker there. Quincy Happel, one of the matches that got turned around from the duel at Lisbon that Don Bosco won, Happel got a decision over Jaden Moore, which was big.
And you don't think about it too much at the time, but those 6 points are huge, especially in a duel like this.
Especially at 152 as well, because
Right.
Hauk lost by fall to Ranavardi, and then turned around and got the fall at the end, and that made a huge difference. But, it was Cole Clark that kind of got things started. Baltus, Happel, Cade Siebrecht. Was that another one that got turned around? Or not? Over Miles McMahon. Maybe it was Paez. Paez at 20.
Paez might have
that
been.
turned one around there, beating Garrett Funk. And, of course, we'll talk about Brandon Paez a lot more later. And then you got into the heart of the line, or not the heart, but Avila, Happel, that actually gave them their first lead, setting up, the last two matches. Renovardi with a fall and then Hauk answering to win it. You brought up an interesting thing earlier, just about the different matchups and how the last two duels between these teams played out and the strategy, and you wouldn't think it'd be a huge difference,
No,
but it does.
You really wouldn't, because they moved. Bosco moved the guys up and won a lot of those matches, and the big one was Easton Larson. Because he weighed in at 38 at that first duel at the end of January, and of course weighed in at 32 this time. Which when Lisbon saw that, because I was even told about it right away, that Easton has weighed in at 32, which meant that they weren't going to adjust their lineup.
Okay.
So they knew, they kind of had an idea already at the beginning of the day what to expect. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, and that's the difference of having the individual tournament the next day, and also it could have come
but
down.
Those
to,
are two different weigh-ins.
Yeah, but you don't. You don't want to
Well,
have
true.
Your kid up. I mean, if it's
Right.
1 point or a tenth of that's all it could be. It has to be really. But, still you're thinking that's in the mind because it's so close. And then also it could have come down to a coin toss too, as to who had to put their kid out first.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And that was another match too. You mentioned Easton Larson 132. That match was close early on, but Avila just slowly started pulling away, and then got the fall right at the end, right before the buzzer. And that ended up being big as well. Not just because if they would have kept that to a decision, you're looking at a lot of. I mean, that last match has a whole different complexion. Because it's not tied at that point. Don Bosco is up by a couple points.
Right.
So, that was big for Avila to come back and then finish that off. And here's another thing too. And maybe you can talk about this. We're diverting a little bit. Avila and Larson. The official result is listed a fall in 6 minutes. 2, 4, 6 minute falls. I don't understand. How is that not 5:59?
How long is the match?
Huh? 6 minutes.
And you're saying how can it be a 6 minute fall?
Isn't time expired at the 6 minute mark? Or the 2 minute mark
If
at
it's,
the.
if it's right at the buzzer, I guess that's why they're calling it. But yeah, that makes sense. I guess if it's because you're not going to 6:01, you're going
Right.
to 6:00. I guess I see what you're saying there. But yeah, I mean it's a 6 minute match, so
See, it's
totally,
whether or not it's kind of like on the line. If it touches the line, then it's still in. If it hits 6 minutes on the dot, it doesn't mean it's over. It means that's the last.
So technically, from 5:59 to 6 should be 6 minutes,
Okay.
and from 0 to 1 should be 1 second, right?
Okay.
Is that how that works?
All right.
I
Yeah.
guess that's
All
time
right.
wise, but that's not how we view it, is it?
Yeah.
If it's
if it hits zeros, it should be over.
59.8.
Over.
If it's 59.8, it's 59 seconds, but it really should be
Right.
60 seconds, right?
So. All right.
That's interesting, yeah.
But
Generally, to make the call, a lot of officials when their hands going down to slap the mat, they've already seen the call. So
Okay.
So that if they're going the fall, then it's time as they're going down. A lot of times they'll say, "No, I saw the fall before."
yeah,
the
so this
keeper
is
said.
when the hand comes down. That's not when the fall has taken place already.
Already.
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
That's a good
sense.
point.
And that's
yeah.
something people probably don't.
Understand.
Or just probably don't want to, depending on what side.
There's another
side
count
they're
when
on.
you're doing a count and you're going 1001 in your head, 1002. So as you're going 1 and then you're going 2 and he rolls off his back, in your mind you're going, well, it's not there. So sometimes you get 2 swipes and you're going, nope, he rolled off before he got to the
Okay.
2. So that's how I do it with the count. I think a lot
Okay.
of other officials do also. So
All right, but these two teams we knew they're head and shoulders above the rest, and
yeah, it was.
they
a
really
heck of a
they
battle.
really delivered.
Yeah, and also the 3A was a great meet as well, very close, but not our local teams.
But
Yeah, but Southeast Polk came away with.
you know, and that came down to the last match too.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, and what was interesting to me on that was Yount at 152 for Waverly. Basically needed a pin to tie. So, and I'm lost at who the Southeast Polk kid was.
Bardo.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so he had to keep it to less than a pin, and that is the first time I've seen an individual lose and jump up with
Be
joy
excited?
and be excited because his team had won.
That actually happened I thought the same thing at the Loris Wartburg meet.
Oh, sure.
At heavyweight. He was all excited and hands up in the air, and I'm going, in my mind, I went, you just lost. but they won.
But they won the duel.
Yeah,
Which I thought was interesting, you know. I guess I'd forgotten about that one.
Yeah, you didn't notice it.
The one thing that kind of I know they were marquee matchups in the duel, but for Southeast Polk to have both of the Yezeragas lose or Rogas lose and still win 29-26, that tells you just how good they did.
In this duel, it kind of sets up what happened in the individual as to being a wow factor.
Right.
So I mean, Waverly Shell Rock loses to Southeast Polk in a very tight match, and then goes and turns around. We'll get to that in a minute, but turns it around and not even close.
Right.
So
and one of the things that got pointed out too by other media members, this was the first year since we've had the duels and traditional tournament in consecutive days in that 4-day stretch that we haven't seen a team sweep
win both, yeah.
the titles.
So you had
whether
6
it's-
different champs.
Yeah, and here's how it's gone. In 2012, Bettendorf swept 3A titles. In 2013, it was Southeast Polk and Albernet in 3A and 1A. Then it was Bettendorf and Assumption in 2014. Southeast Polk did it in 15. Albernet did it in 16. Lisbon and Polk in 2017. Fort Dodge did it in 2018. Then last year, it was Don Bosco and West Delaware. Don Bosco and West Delaware last year.
So it sounds
That's
like it's
what
kind
both.
of 50-50 in terms of about half of the teams are double winners and half aren't, or single winners.
Yeah.
Not throwing out this year. This year anyway.
What is your feel? I know this is going to be a big couple weeks, actually month for the IHSAA. There's a lot of talk circulating around Wells Fargo Arena from not referees,
Administrators.
as administrators and coaches and media members and everything else, what the future holds for the state duels. Do you guys have a gut feeling after we've been there? You know, because the contract's up. The contract's up with Wells Fargo Arena. A lot of, you know, there are some people that still think we're going to have the same format next year. A lot of people have talked about sectionals being done with and duels possibly being that Friday, weekend or whatever. Some even have mentioned January being a home for that before you get into the conference and postseason. You guys have a gut feeling on what might happen?
I don't have a gut feeling, but because I was asked over the weekend from the guys from the Athletic Association, and they were asking my opinion, but then wouldn't give a response. So
Really?
I'm not real sure what way they were leaning. They just basically asking my opinion, what I thought and what I thought would work and not work, and
I think the best thing that's going to have it's going to be the least painful is if you're going to change it, is to change it and put the duels on the sectional weekend. because if you go back and do it sometime in January, you're going to take away a lot of, on one weekend, you're going to take away quite a few tournaments from local schools. I don't think you can go back 2 weeks because that's conference tournament weekend generally for most conferences. So you have to go back further. Now what are you going to take out? There's some big tournament somewhere that's going to get taken out, as well as a whole lot of other tournaments. So I just think that's probably the least painful way. So because of that, I would say maybe state duels on the sectional weekend, sectional Saturday, or maybe even Friday, and then or they're going to leave it the same.
And the other thing is, I think the 1 and 2A schools like it the way it is on the day before. I think a majority of them do. I wouldn't say all, but your 3A schools are the ones that are fighting a little bit more.
They don't have competition that week, that sectional weekend.
Right.
So they're not really losing anything.
Right.
So they have a
I'm,
little less.
but
to lose.
I just said
I can
that-
see why they're saying that. Yeah.
That's just my consensus. And
Yeah. Well, that's kind of supporting it, I guess.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see, I guess.
So, I know there was everything from Council Bluffs to Wells Fargo Arena still being a host to a couple places in eastern Iowa, including the U.S. Cellular Center here in Cedar Rapids. Personally, I think Cedar Rapids would be a great spot or a fitting spot for it. I think the arena is the perfect size. There's another one in the area that I would discourage being chosen just because I think it's too smaller. I've never been at the venue in Council Bluffs to really say anything about that.
that is actually a great venue. The Mid-America Center, I think, is what you're talking about. It's actually a great venue, a great place to have it, except then you're dealing with the other side of the
I
state.
think it's going to affect your attendance.
Yeah. And I guess what I was getting at least Cedar Rapids, you're not clear on the opposite side of the state.
Sure.
Even though it's
It's a
not
little
centrally,
it's a little further in.
Yeah, it's not centrally located, and and then with the size, I think it would be perfect. And the other thing would be, to me, when they had it in Cedar Rapids before, you could be one and done. And now they're placing all 8, which I think would help attendance.
And one thing, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings with this. I don't want to disrespect anybody, because the tournament, these tournaments take a lot of effort and a lot of coordination. I think there are some individuals that would be involved this go around with the duels that are more wrestling oriented individuals, if that makes sense. I think there are some people that were leading the tournament when the duels were here the week after state that were people that ran the tournament as if they're just running the event. Do you know what I mean? They weren't wrestling specific people, even though they may have maybe they sought advice from her or whatever. There were administrators that they were just doing their job instead of being vested because they were wrestling people, if that makes sense. And like I said, I'm not going to point specific fingers at anybody or anything like that. You're smiling. I think you might know
I have an idea
what I mean. And not to mention, I think there are people that would be involved that would make it a better event, if you know what I mean.
Kind of have that wrestling sense and
Yeah.
as well as the administrators.
There's certain people that I think that would be good to help out with planning and stuff like that as well for the next go around. But
And actually,
do you know anybody that might?
That might fit that.
Yeah.
A few.
Yeah.
Especially in the area. So
Especially maybe sitting at a table right now. But I digress. So we'll see where the duels go. I think there's an advisory committee even this week, a meeting this week, and I think there's a board meeting early in March. So I think we'll have answers sooner than later, and I think they need answers sooner than later to start planning ahead because you can't just turn these things around.
But actually, you know,
short time.
going through these scores, I think basically everybody wrestled pretty much their lineups to a point, except for maybe North Scott.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
After North Scott won their opening round,
You could tell what they were vested in. Is
Yeah.
they wanted to get that first one, and then and to be fair to North Scott, I think they sat their qualifiers
right.
more than anything. But yeah, those
Which makes
matches
sense.
were-
Now back to yours. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit, just to close that out. Maybe if they do go to a certain weekend, and maybe the venue's not available, maybe they do a floating one for the first couple of years until they can get locked in somewhere, and then they decide which one they like. So maybe
Sure.
it's here, maybe it's at the Five Seasons Center, maybe it's somewhere else. And they'll try that, and so that's an option too. So, anyway.
But I also think that wrestling those all 8 places out makes a difference compared to what it was.
Sure.
Yep.
I really do, because you're coming. Even if your team is going to finish 8th, you're going to get to watch them wrestle 3 duels.
Right.
Where
Before
when
it was
in the
one
five,
and done, and why travel?
yeah, because I remember
the
Sioux
state.
City. I think it was Sioux City North coming over here one year, for
Yeah.
one duel.
Probably
Right.
seated not in
Right.
the top 4 anyway.
No,
And I think that same year, was that the year where it got snowed out on Saturday and it was actually a
Oh, yeah.
Monday, and they had to come for one duel on a Monday and then head back.
Yeah, I remember.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Knowing the situation, that duel probably lasted an hour and 15 minutes, and you got a 6-hour bus ride to do it.
Right.
Right.
And anymore, you can watch it on Track Wrestling. Right?
Yeah.
So let's transition to the traditional tournament. It's normal, exciting, surprising, roller coaster of emotion event that it normally is year in and year out. What makes it so special? Should we start in 1A or 3A? And work our way back.
Well, let's go 3, 2, 1. That
3,
was the
2.
order of schedule.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, it was this
Makes
year.
sense?
Yeah, it was this year.
And for the second straight year, Waverly Shell Rock and Southeast Polk flip flop from the dual finish. Waverly Shell Rock with their second straight team title with 181 points, 40 more than Southeast Polk.
40. They were 3 points away, 6 points away
Yeah.
from each other in a duel, and 40 points away in the individual. That's what we were getting at. That to me is wow.
Yeah, and they came
That's
out.
the wow factor.
And that first day, they came out like gangbusters and really did well. Really set the tone. Really impressed with their lightweights, Block and Roybal. Braden Wolf with the title at 220 as well, but came out back-to-back titles there to start Saturday night. Pretty cool.
Again, just
Yeah.
wow. There, I mean, they really ran away from It was then became a battle for second place.
Yeah, and actually it was kind of interesting to see how Southeast Polk at one time it dipped to 4th or
Right.
5th, and battled back to get second. Fort Dodge ended up 3rd with Ayala as a champ at 120.
And then we kind of called it. We kind of called it here on. You heard it here first. Top 5. We said both teams had a chance to do it, and they did it.
Iowa City West got 4th,
Yeah,
almost
good
scored
job.
100 points, I think 99 and a half. And then Linmar, both of them had 3 finalists, and the Lions end up 5th.
And West having the 3 champs, Waverly with 4 champs and Iowa City West with 3 right behind them, which
Yeah, and who did I miss for Waverly? I mentioned 3. Wolf, Roybal,
Block.
was it? Was it? Yeah. Was it?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. My bad.
Yep.
I'm missing that the first time, but yeah.
Yeah,
Right
I
there.
was really impressed with Iowa City West, and I don't know if you called Gambrel or not.
No,
Because I did not. But
I did not.
Like I talked to his dad before the finals.
Oh yeah, Jeff.
And, yeah, and one thing about Graham is the fact that he's got a 7-minute gas tank.
Oh, without a doubt.
You know, and he is. I mean, that's to me because not that I had seen him a lot, but these last month I had, and it's 7 minutes. You know, on that 6-minute match. So
For sure.
Both Lindmar and Iowa City West are fairly young, I think, too.
Well, I think
lot coming back.
Lindmar has 2 of their 3 finals
Finals back.
back. And
As does the
West
West.
has 2 of their 3 as well. Gambrel's back, Garvin's back, but I think
Holt
Holt
is a graduate. going to
is a
Harvard.
graduate. Ashton Barker, who got 3rd,
Junior, yeah.
who it's one of the maybe underappreciated accomplishments that a wrestler can have
yeah.
at state or at the national tournament. Barker lost his first round match, won 5 straight matches to come back and get 3rd at 170 for the 2nd straight year. But that consolation gauntlet, that is probably one of the most unappreciated efforts
Agreed.
and achievements that a wrestler can do. Because one, not only are you disappointed by that first result and having that state title,
Taken away.
yep,
You got
dashed.
to turn around like in an hour and a half and wrestle again.
Again.
and
with
start
just
rallying.
your so it's not just a state title that's taken away. Now you're fighting for just
Existence.
being able to wrestle another match.
Yeah.
And kudos to him. And like I said, you know, he's back. And then Grant Odell at 106, I believe, is back. So what is that? 4 out of 5 medalists
Well,
coming back.
And then for Lindmar, they've got, let's see if I can do it. O'Brien, is Park back?
Yes, Park's back.
Park's back, I thought so, yeah. And so, Plummer, is Plummer a senior?
I believe he graduated.
I believe he does.
Yeah.
And I think
and then
he's
who else am I
graduate.
missing in their finals?
O'Brien and Noctiborn are both back.
Noctiborn, yeah.
Yeah.
Noctiborn, yeah.
And of course, Noctiborn for a few years, and we can talk about that finals match as well. But then you look at Luke Gaffney at 220, who got 7th, which I think was, I hate saying surprise, but, you know, that was a pleasant outcome there as well. And Kimakai at 52, he got 8th this year. He's back as well, so, you know, they've...
Gaffney's a
they-
sophomore and Kimukai
He's a junior.
junior.
Yep. So they've got a nice nucleus coming back as well. You know, so
Obviously, I would say 2 front runners in the Valley next year.
yeah, oh for sure,
And the state.
for sure. Well, let's talk about that 160 matchup coming in. Or you know, we talked about it. You know, possibility of 2 freshmen facing off in that match. Ben Keeter of Iowa City High versus Tate Noctiborn of Lindmar. And sure enough, both of them in the finals. A rematch of the MVC final that Keeter won by a point, 3-2. This time he comes away with a 4-3 victory. Noctiborn gets the opening takedown. Just the second time Keeter had been taken down all year because he'd given up one in the semifinal to Helgeson. Was that?
Helgeson from
Yep.
Johnston.
Yep. So he gave up one in the semis to Helgeson, still won, and then that was just the second one. But he battled back, got a reversal in the second, and then a late takedown there. Great match, but you know it could have gone either way there,
Oh, it really
especially
could've.
in that last
And that
scramble.
scramble. I hate to say this, but I've got, as a wrestler, I have matches that I relive still to this day, and that's one I think that Tate's probably going to relive again, because he really, he was in the scramble, had a leg, and then kind of rolled the dice and to try and get the takedown and release the leg, and in the scramble ended up giving up the takedown or the opportunity for the takedown, and ultimately the takedown, and that was it. So he's going to relive that one a lot, I'm sure. But again, that's a couple of freshmen, so that's going to happen. It wasn't bad wrestling; it was just got into a scramble, and in my opinion, if he'd kept the leg, might have reversed the title there. So.
Yeah, and I didn't think Noctiboran would beat Bonanno in that semifinal, just like because I didn't think he could beat him after he lost to him here a couple of weeks ago. Just like Keeter, Helgeson is a pretty solid individual. I think he finished third, but as freshmen, to have that mental approach to me, which is, I put it out there that I didn't pick him for the finals, but that was part of the reasoning was that freshman mentality. But apparently they were prepared.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Not your typical freshman, for sure.
No, not at all.
And this has been asked to me 100 times, I think, over the last week, if two freshmen ever wrestled each other in the finals at that high of a weight, especially in 3A. I can't say for sure. But I don't remember that ever being the case. Could be the first time. I can't say that officially that this was the first time two freshmen have wrestled, but I tell you what,
In that high of a
That high of a weight.
you see it at 106 or 112
Right.
or something. But to face guys who are maybe a few years older and more physically mature, but these guys, I tell you what, there's something special. And here's one thing that Keeter said afterwards, because he talked about them being freshmen. This could be a rivalry that we see play out over the next 4 years if they stay at the same weights, right? He goes, I'd love to wrestle him more, speaking about Nakamura. He brought a dogfight. That's why I go out there. I don't go out there because I want it easy. I want to fight every match, and he brought it. Props to him for that. And I thought, not only are these guys good skill-wise, but that is certainly a mature approach for a freshman.
For a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah, so that's I thought that was I was impressed by that.
I've always, as a
afterwards.
coach, believed that what happens at the college trickles down to high school, and high school down to middle school, and middle school down to youth. And to me, I'm going to put it right out there. I think that's the Spencer Lee effect. You just listen to Spencer Lee, and that sounds like a Spencer Lee quote.
Sure.
That's trickling down to the high school, and good for all of these guys that are taking that attitude and having that sort of a approach. So, and maybe it's not Spencer Lee, but I believe it. And I've watched it. Whether it's things they say, things they do on the mat, types of things, and I've watched it through the years. And a lot of times, what happens down at the university, or pick a university, but generally that one is what you're going to see at the high school level. So that's neat. That's really neat.
Any other observations from 3A? I know for me, really quick, Hunter Garvin coming away with a win, and actually was a finalist last year. He talked about how the last year he had been, after he lost in the finals last year, he kind of doubted himself. He had negative thoughts creeping into his mind. Took him a while to kind of work out of that. I almost wonder, I wish I would have asked about this more, but what type of advice Nate Moore may have given Hunter Garvin? Because if anybody remembers Nate Moore, 4-time finalist, and boy, he suffered a really disappointing loss that first year, I believe, to Ballweg.
Was Ballweg also a freshman?
I think so.
Because what came up when we were talking about two freshmen. But then that was at 103 or whatever it was back then.
Yeah, 103 back then. And then he came back and then was a runner-up again. And then finally his junior year is when, he broke through. But I wonder just how much Nate maybe had experienced the same thing that Hunter was going through and helped him through that. And, of course, he came away almost with a major in the 132-pound final. And he was so excited. He was so excited about that. I was talking to him minutes later, and he's still kind of going like that, talking about how I'm just so jacked right now and excited. Watched the last few seconds click down. Thought that was big for him.
Griffith,
Oh,
170
yep.
for Des Moines Lincoln.
Oh, you guys, are we pulling out our? You asked us to do the top performer and surprise
Well, we can do our top performer and surprise for 3A since
right now. Okay.
But
Yeah.
I thought him from Lincoln.
The reason I said is because he was my surprise performer.
Yeah.
Not that he was that much of a surprise, but I was surprised at how good he looked.
Yeah. And I don't know when their last champion from Lincoln was.
McDonough in 03, who beat, I believe, Joey Slayton in the front. Brandon McDonough.
Oh, sure.
I believe that's the last time Lincoln had an
03.
individual title.
But
My first state tournament, by the way.
Wow.
But Dusty Rowland has really gotten that program turning around and looking good.
I agree with yeah. I thought he looked good, Mickey Griffith.
So I will say my MVP in 3A was Drake Ayala.
Yeah.
Boy, he was
Mine too.
dominant.
Yeah.
He was so dominant and coming away with another title. And then my surprise in 3A, I'll eat crow on it. Graham Gambrell.
I'd have to agree with you.
He's also in my top 5 moments. And I'll expand on that, but he was able to come through with big wins in the quarters, semis, and then put up double-digit points in the finals to win it.
In the quarters, didn't he? Was that when he beat Ben Monroe? Mm-hmm. Who was a finalist a year ago, and Ben came back to finish third. So,
Yep.
but that was that gas tank again.
Yeah.
I keep
A
talking
couple
about.
things made me not choose him. One, you kind of shared that one with us, and so I was going to go a different direction.
Yeah, sure.
And secondly, only 3. That's 3A is the only one we knew there. So the rest are going to be surprises. So, but then also, he's a Gambrel.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of good wins there. A lot of gold
Yeah,
medals.
right. So there's a pedigree with them as well. Let's shift gear. I know we were talking about going 3-2-1, but we probably it's my fault. We probably should have started with 1A, and let's talk about Cael Happel. That's probably what I should have mentioned first. Cael Happel comes away with who? What school does he go to again?
Yeah. Wow.
But he becomes the 28th 4-time state champ. And as we learned this year, nothing's given, and we'll get into that as well. But he took care of business.
Did you ever have a doubt? I mean,
No.
Yeah, nothing's given, but even before he stepped on the mat, I never had a doubt. I mean, holy cow, this guy's been so dominant.
Yes.
I mean, not even close. So, yeah.
Over 4 years.
Over the whole 4 years, right?
It just fascinates me, especially as a freshman, because you learn all 4 years. So you as a freshman, you don't have the knowledge you do as a senior, and to come in there and be that dominant. What do you have as a freshman? Did he have where all of them tech falls were pins?
A fall, tech fall, tech fall, tech fall. There was a fall where he was leading 15-3 at the time of the pin. Then a tech fall, he went 23-8, 23-8, 21-6 as a freshman.
That's, it's just crazy.
What
Crazy.
What I thought was interesting, because between podcasts, I'd gone out to do interviews with the Happels and stuff at Lisbon. Find out from Cael and Dean Happel both. Growing up, it was Carter and Quincy who were always winning, and it was always Cael who was getting third or not placing, or going 1 and 2 in his bracket when he was little. And for Cael to come out, the numbers, he finished 217-5 overall in his career. That's good for second all time in wins, 2 back of Haynes of Missouri Valley. In his state tournament performances, we mentioned his freshman year, he went fall, tech fall, tech fall, but he finished with 9 tech falls out of the 16, 5 pins, 1 major decision, which was the finals last year, where he won 23-9 over Logan James, and then this year he pinned James in the finals. And then one of the other victory was an injury default in the semis. Quarterfinals last year. That it was immediate. It was like a 3-second.
So the
He
kid
blew the
was
whistle.
hurt. They blew the whistle, stopped it, raised
Yep.
his hand. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I think the over, if my math was right, it was like 23 or 25 and a half bonus points he scored over
4 years.
the 4 years. And in those matches, he outscored opponents 280 to 87. The only points other than escapes he gave up were reversals. 2 reversals, one to Easton Larson, one to Daniel Meeker, over those 16 matches.
2 reversals. Wow.
No takedowns. Completely dominant. So
So who is your MVP?
yeah, right.
So my question is MVP other than Cael Happel. So that's
wow.
what I was thinking, and I'm going. You know what? There's a whole lot of choices there you could go with. Well, for instance, Aidan Noonan, Robert Avila, Ben Smith, Valley. There's a few other and undefeated champs, but it doesn't matter. It's still Happel.
Right.
He's so impressive.
Right. I guess we probably should have done that. But yeah,
I don't think you don't have an award like that, do you? MVP other than
or maybe.
outstanding wrestler or whatever.
So yeah, obviously Happel for me. And
Surprise choice? Or,
He might be our captain though.
yeah, maybe.
It's got it. Yeah.
And the surprise is Aidan Noonan. We mentioned Happel winning his 4th. Adam Allard of West Sioux going for his 4th as well. Noonan, a returning state champ for Cascade. Last year was Cascade's first ever state champion. And Noonan, I mean, to be honest, I just didn't know what to expect. You kind of overlook him a little bit. Cascade's not necessarily the wrestling powerhouse outside of him. They have some individuals that have done well over the years. Him and his brother obviously have been the best to really kind of come down the pike, especially here recently. But in the way he won it too, where he just stuck in there, was battling, and then the hard ride in the third period, gets the stall call to make it 2-1 and just keeps cranking. During our staff meeting, Jeff Johnson, who used to cover wrestling and was watching it, kept saying, why wasn't he letting him go? You're down, cut him. That's the only way you're going to do it. And he stuck with it, gets the turn, 5th count right as time expires. And then he pulls off the win 4-2. And can't say for sure. Pretty sure it's the first time somebody going for their 4th time has lost in the finals. Everybody remembers Ike Light was going for 4 and lost in the semis to Gabrielson. But boy, you feel for Allard. But what a job by Noonan in the spoiler role, I guess you would say.
And I think the coaches had told him, if you don't feel like you can turn him, then cut him.
Okay.
And then he felt like he could do it.
So I don't know your angle. So when you saw it, did you go? Is it actually there? Did he break
count?
the criteria? So. Yeah, I did. I questioned it in mine, and then
I didn't even, from my angle, from where I was sitting, I didn't even question it.
So you got a good angle then.
Well,
I didn't. I was watching it on the monitor back in the vault where they stick media people since we can't be on the floor anymore. And this has been about 3 or 4 years now that we have to rely on that sometimes if we don't get out there to get a seat.
Right.
But anyway.
So the reason we're bringing that up is, and I'm going, here's my coach. Winning coach, yeah, it's there. Losing coach, I don't know, is it there? Official, is it there? I'm going. So when I first saw it, I'm going, I didn't have a good angle. So then I saw another angle, and there was no question in my mind. It was he had broke 45, and it was the right count. So
for the 5.
For the 5, yeah. He only needed a 2 count, right?
To get 2.
To tie it.
To tie it. Oh, would have tied it. You're right.
Wait,
no,
he would have won
with
right.
the 2. Yeah.
Math is hard sometimes.
And then So whether he got the fifth one in or not was insignificant. He
Right,
still
he
had
would have
one.
won
Right.
3-2 anyway.
Right.
But he did, and I even went back and looked at that. When did he start his count? It was right at the 5. So well done, I thought, by the official and obviously Noonan. So
Now, like I said, I was back in the bunker watching it on the monitor. Do you remember what the initial crowd reaction was?
Oh my God! Yeah.
What was it
'cause I was-
shock or was it excitement?
I'd say a little bit of both, but
Okay.
the Cascade crowd was sitting right directly across. So you could see the Cascade crowd
going nuts.
erupted.
Sure.
You know, and the West Sioux crowd, of course, is probably in disbelief.
shock. Yeah.
You know, and how do you react if they see that count coming? Because once you hit that second, you knew it was done.
Yeah. Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
But that the other thing I was a little surprised because I thought when Adam was announced on the award stand that he would get some kind of ovation, and he didn't get much. But I think it was more of shock.
Maybe respectful too, because
Right. He lost.
Yeah, understanding kind of the feeling that he was
Going
probably
through.
dealing with at the moment. There were a couple things that Aidan Noonan had said after the match that I thought was interesting. One, just when the count started, trying to see if I could find it here. Oh, that's old. Trying to look up
So when
quotes from.
when he did do his count, the initial one was like, yeah, I think it's right there at 45, and then it shifted down into no question it was 45. So that was and of course I'm looking on that replay here later after the fact. But
He said, so afterwards, I asked him about once he started seeing the count. He goes, I'm seeing him counting swipes, and I'm just thinking, hold on. Because he goes, he's going to try something there at the end. But the other thing I thought was interesting, that he talked about, it was just the fact that, did you embrace the role of being a spoiler? Because a lot of people going in, hey, this is a 4-time champ. You're kind of going to be that name in
Right.
history, who they beat for. He said, it's always the goal to win. He goes, we train the hardest to beat the best. So that's what we did. And you can tell just from that, he wasn't going out there just to be a part of somebody else's history. He was going to go out there and win and approach it like any other match. And came away with a victory. Go the whole time, wrestle 6 minutes. It's cliche, but that's what he did. And it worked.
Pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Almost surreal
but-
at the time.
Yeah. I was. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked when when that. Once I start seeing the turn, you kind of heard something, but you didn't know exactly. It could have just been, the response to a 4-timer.
Right.
And then once the video caught up to the events, it was like, that just happened. Seriously, that happened. And kudos to Noonan and kudos to Adam Allard as well. 4-time finalist, the 3-time champ. I know that's probably not what's going through his mind right now, but one hell of a career.
Right. And he handled it pretty respectfully afterwards.
Very much so. Speaking of Lisbon, 4 champs. You had Happel, Avila, Hauk at 52, and Brandon Paez at 120. Interesting note with Paez, him and Damon Houston of Midland faced each other in tournament finals for 4 straight weekends. Houston won the conference title 8-4. Paez had pins in sectionals and districts and came away with a 5-0 victory in the finals. Just kind of a noteworthy stretch for for both of them.
And they're good friends. I think they're workout partners.
Yeah,
The same.
I'd seen
club,
that they're workout partners.
I didn't know that. either.
The club, right? Eastern Iowa Wrestling Club, or
I believe so.
Okay.
Well, and the other thing is, being I've been getting texts and everything else, Damon Houston is the first finalist for Midland since 1970, I
78?
believe. No, 70, I think it was. wasn't
Wow.
it?
I think it might be 78.
Maybe I missed the zero.
Let me double check, because I was surprised to when looking up their last state champ. And maybe I have it wrong, so I'll just double check.
So it's between 42 and 50 years. We're just saying that.
Yeah, it's
been a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Wow,
for sure.
That's geez, holy cow! But we've noted that Midlands has done a nice job this year of improving. You know, a lot of area teams that Midland. I've watched Anamosa improve and so forth. So
Yeah, in 1978, Midland had champs Dan Snyder and Matt Schaefer. And they actually had a top 3 finish, which I had never known that before with Midland.
Oh, really?
So, but yeah, it doesn't change the fact that it's been a heck of a
It was
long
in the
time.
70s.
And that's champs, you know, for
Right.
a finalist. Maybe that's a runner-up, the last second place finisher since 1970. So that's
It
that's
was
pretty
in the
awesome.
70s
Yeah.
is what I saw.
Yeah, so awesome on Damon Houston's part, and both of them are back, right? Houston's,
Yes.
Yep,
Junior.
yep. So we'll look forward to that again. Cole Clark was a runner-up, but Lisbon was still a distant second. Don Bosco had the team title locked up before the finals even started. Don Bosco scored 170 points. Lisbon 144 and a half. That tells you a little bit that Lisbon wrestled exceptionally well and still not able to touch Don Bosco.
Yeah, Lisbon with the 4 champs, and Underwood had 2, and then everybody else had a champ.
Yeah. Don Bosco got theirs from Thomas Even at 182.
And Underwood had theirs from Hamilton and Porter.
At,
You know, because I'd mentioned
106
at the
and
beginning of the
45.
year, watch out for Underwood. You know, they didn't have the dual team, but they had those 5, 6, 7 guys that were going to score some points. And
And they did. They finished with 106 and got that third place finish in front of West Sioux. So that was big.
did we mention 160? I don't remember.
Not yet. Excuse me. Ben Smith of Iowa Valley comes in. Him and Cade Tenold had wrestled earlier in the season. Tenold had won that one at, I think, is it the Appleton Parkersburg tournament? Is that the Vry or something like that? I think that's where Tenold had won. But Ben Smith comes through a ride out they exchanged escapes in the first in the regulation. Ben Smith with a ride out in the first 30 seconds, and then I think he escaped with 5 seconds to go in the second 30-second period for the 2-1 victory. What was it? This is going to sound clunky the way I explain it, but Garrett Sims won last year for Iowa Valley. Of course, then he won this year. Ben Smith won this year. First time they had champs in consecutive years since 1991 and 1992. And the only reason why I bring that up is because there's a little bit of a personal connection with it, because the individual in 1991 that won for Iowa Valley was Tracy Dietz.
Oh yeah.
Tracy Dietz happened to be a senior my freshman year at Buena Vista and wrestled. And he was somebody that he ended up with a brain tumor that season and wasn't able to compete. So he was a really special person. To see Ben Smith and Garrett Sims be the first champs for Iowa Valley back to back was kind of special, considering last time it was Tracy and I believe Rathjen for Iowa Valley. So pretty cool. Almost 30 years since they've had champs in consecutive years, even though they've had finalists in each of the last 5. Garrett and Ben Smith finished that off. Even more impressive, it was his 200th victory.
Right.
To have your 200th win, be in the finals for a state title. He'd gotten, I think, 8th and 3rd the last 2 years. And then he's not wrestling in college. Somebody that probably could. He's going to go study to be a lineman for gas utility. And so this was it, no matter what. And he comes away for a state title. And pretty cool.
And there's a lot of people can't say that your last match is a win, not only a win, but a state title.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were talking about this before. He said it was kind of bittersweet because his 100th victory as a sophomore was down at the state meet, so there was no real formal recognition when he got it. Then 150, which is becoming another big milestone, was at state his junior year. No recognition for it. This time his 200th comes in the final. I guess you just have to settle for the award stand. But the one big, we were talking about this before too, kind of the one big series there, it looked like Tennell had him dead to rights in sudden victory, and Smith was able to get out of it.
For a 2-1 match, to me, it didn't seem like a 2-1 match because of the action during the whole 6 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever it was. I guess that's when you have that 2-1 match and you don't think of it as a 2-1 match. They've been doing a lot of good stuff, I guess.
Sure. Any other 1A thoughts or?
No, other than
Because obviously my MVP was Happel and Noonan.
I think that's
yeah.
a wash.
Okay, so let's move to Class 2A here as well. Kind of a surprise in the team race. I think a lot of people thought West Delaware would run away with the sweep. We saw what they did in duels. They looked like they were cruising. Stubbed their toes a little bit, even right out of the gate. It was a tough go. They were leading maybe through the first session or two, but Osage comes away. I think their first team title since 1980 or 81.
39 years.
It's been quite a while. Union Community still had a chance, in the finals. They needed 2 pins and have Osage go 0-2. Obviously, that didn't happen. But Union had a champion in Adam Aronson at 160. Centerville, whoa, what a big performance for them. They 3 qualifiers, 3 finalists, 2 champs, right?
Yep.
Yep, and they got third, 66 points. Solon ends up 4th with champs and Hayden Taylor, a sophomore who's won his 2nd straight title, and then Jax Flynn at 170 comes away with a championship for them as well.
Interesting. Solon and Centerville were the only the only teams with more than 1 champ.
Really?
Yeah, there was 12 different teams with a champion in 2A.
I didn't realize
and
that.
historically, this is, I think, the first time Solon's had 2 champs in one season.
Really? Mm-hmm. See, I didn't realize that
either.
Wow. Because they had, I think, the Wests in the finals one year, but yeah, only won.
But then with Lewis, that was a rematch of last year's finals with
Right.
Isaiah Weber.
Mm-hmm. And Lewis coming out on top again there. Any other individual? Cody Fisher comes away with another championship as well.
Well, for me, if we're going to OWs or whatever,
Yep.
MVPs, I opted for Schropp. Jalen Schropp, Williamsburg, he had to come from behind to win it, but champions do that. They'll find a way. They'll keep at it, and he's physical. He's confident. I mean, he's skilled. He's just a guy that I've got to watch a number of times this year, and each time I'm more impressed with him. So for me, he is the OW, though Hayden Taylor could have certainly been right there. I mean, obviously, 1 and 2. Those are two good choices for
Then
me.
I was going to throw out Sage Walker from Eddyville. He had 2 falls, tech fall, and then he won his finals 3-2. But I thought that was up till the finals was a fairly dominating performance as well.
Speaking of Taylor, touch on this a little bit, really quick. Just that semifinal. You mentioned Schropp too. Schropp and Macias and Taylor and Thompson were on mats right by each other. Schropp with a pin coming back from being down 5-0, and then Taylor and Thompson going into the ultimate tiebreaker and the deciding point being on the third caution. Devastating for Thompson. Taylor, very disappointed because he didn't want to win that way. But, a win's a win, and,
Not
it's
much
just
you
one of
can
those
do-
things.
Not much you can do
It's the
about
rules.
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I tell you, guarantee you what, the official didn't want to call that.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Exactly.
You've got to do it. So.
So, trying to think of anything else that really kind of stands out.
I'm wondering
in
if that
2A.
Macias is the son of Manuel Macias, who wrestled Mark Ironside and beat him at one time,
Really?
or at least was ranked above him. I'm not sure if he beat Mark or not. You'd think I'd be able to remember five guys. He only had 5 losses, so anyway.
Yeah, Matthew Doyle, kind of a neat deal on Saturday. Matthew Doyle wrestling in the finals. His dad, Michael Doyle, was named 2A Coach of the Year. So a big night for them and 2 Class Acts as well. Carter Fausick winning another title for Crestwood. Will Esmoyle capping his career for West Liberty with a
Will.
championship.
Brother Bryce was a
Two-timer,
two-timer,
I
yeah.
believe.
So
So big for them. And my MVP was Cody Fisher coming through for Woodward Granger. My surprise was Jax Flynn. Part of that Walmack foursome that's so good. Got a big win in the semis, and then finishes it off in the championship.
Yeah, I can't hardly argue with that.
Yeah.
my surprise was Osage as a team.
Oh, yeah.
As a team. And so that, I mean, we already said it, but first time in 39 years, and I didn't see that one at all coming before the state tournament.
Yeah, actually, how many people would have,
Yeah. So
except for Osage?
Yeah, and congratulations to Brent Jennings. Spencer Newberry, Nick Fox in the finals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So good performance there. So I asked you guys about 5 moments. Now I'll go over my 5 highlights or big moments quick. I know we got to kind of wrap things up here. Number 5 for me was Don Bosco Lisbon going 18-0 in the first round. Lisbon went 8-0 with bonus points in 6 matches, and they were still far behind Don Bosco, who had gone 10-0, and I think got bonus points in at least 8 of theirs. I mean, that was pretty amazing. I even think the top 4 teams went like a combined gaudy 35-4 over in that first round in 1A. So that was pretty amazing start there. Number 4, I called it Go Graham Gambrel. He's down 4-1 in the second period to Ben Monroe. Storms back to win 7-6. He's down 4-1 in the second period again to Devin Streif from North Scott. So you're talking about a state champion in the quarters that he's wrestling, the top ranked kid in the semis he's wrestling, and he comes back and wins. I think it was 9-7 on that one. Even used a move that he normally doesn't use to come away with a victory there, and then scores 10 points in the finals. Number 3 was the Taylor Thompson final sequence. The caution, I mean, that's something that's going to stand out for a while. It's just unfortunate, but hey, it's part of the game. and with 15 seconds to go, there's going to be a restart. Talk about the fur flying, but we didn't get there. But something had to give. 2 state champions going at it and battled. It's just one of those. It's going to be a something people remember for a while. 2, Noonan spoiling Allard's 4-time quest, and then of course Cael Happel finishing it off, giving his dad Dean a hug, and then running up into the stands and giving his mom Dawn a hug as well. That was pretty cool, and always enjoy seeing somebody accomplish that feat. So,
You going?
I can. So my top 5, it's kind of looking for some of the not obvious ones and a couple of the obvious ones. But the top 5 moments, I thought Linn-Mar and Iowa City West had 3 finalists each and finishing in the top 5. That's pretty impressive. So that's pretty nice. Cael Happel, obviously number 28, and the crowd awarding him appropriately, with the 4, and that's always a neat moment. And these are in no particular order. I was impressed with how well the area 3A kids did, because with team wise, the area didn't look like it was going to do very well down there. I'm wrong. Linn-Mar and Iowa City West proved us wrong there. But again, that was a few individuals. But so I was impressed with not just those 2 teams, but a lot of the teams in the area. They did such a good job. Taylor's win over Thompson was, that's just unique and interesting and sad on all of those, So that was it. And then for me, this one's probably number 1. Always, every year, it's the pageantry that it is our state wrestling tournament. From the Grand March, that still gives not me, everyone goosebumps. I think that's there. It's so cool. Dan Gable there, rappelling from the ceiling. Was it the Army National Guard? Was it? And then the John Randall's. This is the one that'll get everyone every session when he says, "Wrestlers, clear the mats." That's it, man. It's like, come on, here we go, let's go. And so Bubba, nice job as usual. So that's the goosebumper too. So those are my 5.
All right, mine. And I'll start from 5. The 2 freshmen getting in the finals.
Sure. Yeah.
With Keeter and Octoboron, which kind of. Well, I didn't pick him to make the finals, so I guess and at that weight, I just thought it was fascinating. And we were wondering, I wasn't going to break in before, but the only one we can think of that won a state title at a higher weight or upper weight was Trey Clark from Union as a freshman.
Sure.
But was he wrestling another freshman? That was the question.
Well, no, but I was just wondering about a freshman winning a state title.
Sure, the higher weight.
Yeah. The duels, I guess, with Waverly and Southeast Polk, Don Bosco, and Lisbon coming down to the last match.
Sure.
I thought was another.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah. Osage winning the 2A was. I don't think anybody saw that coming. They brought 6 kids down. Did they place 5? I think it was 5. But and then of course Noonan, and with that crowd reaction to that, and then of course Happel. So
yes, 5 out of 6 Green Devils
placed.
So awesome. You can check all the state tournament coverage at thepredicament.com. Nathan Ford, our producer, has a couple neat videos and some neat graphics and pictures from our state champs at thegazette.com as well.
I got to throw something out here because we did a story that I'll release probably today or it might even be out there. I might have accidentally put it out there on Wade Mitchell from Woodbury Central.
Sure.
Who blew his knee out during the football.
Champ from last year.
Yeah, and couldn't compete, and he was actually on the bench cheering his team on, helping coach, and just to throw this out here, the coach was telling me he's trying to get his daughter to date Wade because he thinks that highly of that individual. So it's a great story on Wade Mitchell.
Cool. So you can check that out at thepredicament.com. We ran really, really long. sorry, just a lot to get to. Of course, it's a state tournament, so worth it.
Closes us out for the season, doesn't it?
Yeah.
High
So
school.
prep's in the books for preps. So make sure you tune in. Still watch us as we talk college wrestling and stuff. We're approaching Big Tens and the national tournaments coming up. Regionals for D2 and D3s are at the end of this week as well. D3s are up in Dubuque. So we'll be up there. I'm sure all three of us will be up there
I'll be up there.
for that.
I'm thinking about it.
You think about all right, but for the prep side of things, we appreciate you watching all season, and we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't be able to do it if it wasn't for you guys. So with that said, Wyatt, send us out.
Let's keep wrestling on the move.